Hey, welcome to Slay the Spire. I am still on vacation, and as I remember in the last two videos, in the last 2 days, I mentioned I'll be back on the 11th, which should be today. Unfortunately, I'll be back late today, so I don't think I'll be able to record a daily. So instead, let's go over the rare relics. Should I just do the boss and event and shop relics too? Yeah, sure. Let's do a long video. That way, the next day I'll be back with a daily. All right. Let's go through all the relics here. I will still rank them separately just because I think they do deserve the separate ranking. So, all right, for the rare relics, as always, I am ranking the relics based on how useful they are in dailies. I am still considering S tier to be a definite buy, top tier relic. A tier is a great relic in almost all situations, and I will definitely buy it. The B is a good relic, can be great in some situations, and I'm happy to buy it. C is decent relics. In certain situations, they're great, but in others, they're not that great, and I would buy it if I have gold left over. D is a neutral relic. If I get it, I won't complain, but I definitely wouldn't pay money for it. And F is not a horrible relic, but it can be bad. Or really what I mean with F is that it shouldn't be a rare relic. It should be an uncommon relic. So let's start alphabetically. So we started with the Bird-Faced Urn. Whenever you play a power card, heal 2 HP. This urn shows the Crow God Muzzaleth looking mischievous. Okay, apparently there's a Crow God too now. Alright, so Bird-Faced Urn for me is F. Mostly it is F because I don't think it should be a rare relic, especially for dailies. Again, it falls into the category of relics that help you heal, but A, it requires you to have power cards, which admittedly for something like a defect run is feasible. You can have a deck with a lot of powers, and even other characters do have a lot of powers. But then only it heals you 2 HP for each power you play. So yeah, you need to have powers. You need to play it. I don't think it's a good relic. I think it should be... I mean, again, I won't complain if I get it, but I think it should be an uncommon relic. I don't think it is worth a rare relic. So yeah, definitely F tier for me on the Bird-Faced Urn. The next we have Calipers. At the start of your turn, lose 15 block rather than all of your block. This, mechanical precision leads to greatness, according to the architect. So yeah, Calipers for me is an A tier relic, so unless you don't generate a lot of block. Now, admittedly, a lot of runs are won by being able to play a barricade with the Ironclad and accumulate the block. Now, Calipers is like a worse version of that because you do need to at least end up with 15 block, which means that you have to have a lot of block generation, which is not always the case. Admittedly, in daily runs, it is important for you to get block to be able to fully defend and be able to perfect things. But being able to generate more than 15 block every turn, not super easy. That's why it's not an S tier relic. It is an A tier relic. It is almost in all situations really good, and sometimes it might not be that useful, but I mean, A tier is the second highest tier, so it's pretty good to have. Alright, next we have Captain's Wheel. At the start of your third turn, gain 18 block. Wooden trinket carved with delicate precision. A name is carved into it, but the language is foreign. Captain's Wheel, just like the other bow parts, I ranked as a B relic. It is very useful in the early game, in the first few acts, especially, well, I guess on Act 1, especially against the Lagavulin. That way you can time it and be fully defended for the first big attack with 18. It can be very useful generally, but it does require you to be able to get to turn 3 and then not have any other block card for it to be really valuable, which is why it, I think, deserves B tier. Not a bad relic, but, I would buy it if I see it, but it's not a must-have. Then next we have an Ironclad only relic, the Champion Belt. Whenever you apply Vulnerable, also apply 1 weak. Only the greatest may wear this belt. So for me, this is a B tier relic. Now, the weakness definitely helps, especially with the Ironclad, which has trouble defending anyway. And then the Vulnerability is relatively easy to come by from the Ironclad, but I don't think it ranks any higher than B because it does require you to be able to apply Vulnerability, so that means you should have some Vulnerability cards, which is not always the case. Still, whenever you have it, it is pretty useful, and the weakness does help, especially when it gets stacked. The next we have another Ironclad only relic, the Charon's Ashes. Whenever you exhaust a card, deal 3 damage to all enemies. Charon was said to be the god of rebirth, eternally dying and reviving in a burst of flame. For me, this is only a C tier relic. So not only does it only deal 3 damage to all enemies, I mean, it can be good if you build your deck around exhaust synergies, right? So if you have a Fiendfire or a bunch of other cards, Blue Candle even or other stuff, then it makes sense, and it does deal some damage. It's not a lot of damage, and yeah, especially one of the reasons I don't like it that much is because in for example, an Infinite run or in Infinite run where it does take a while to animate the Charon's Ashes. So yeah, ultimately I don't think the damage is enough. It is still C tier, which means that I will take it in some situations. If I have gold left over, I'll buy it. But yeah, I don't think it's the best relic there. Cloak Clasp. This is a silent-only relic. At the end of your turn, gain 1 block for each card in your hand. A simple but sturdy design. This is an amazing relic. It is S tier for me, especially because the Watcher retains a lot of cards. A lot of runs are saved by Cloak Clasp for me, especially if you keep the Miracle, if you have a few protects, other retained cards. This allows you to, every turn, get up to 9 block, which is just insane. And you get that for free, basically. It's a really good relic. I'm very happy to put it in S tier. Then next we have Dead Branch. Whenever you exhaust a card, add a random card into your hand, the branch of a tree from a forgotten area. I think I will put this in C tier. That was a joke. This is definitely S tier, no questions. This is probably the only relic that I would rank as S tier for both dailies and Ascension runs. Basically, I can't think of any run where Dead Branch is not going to be useful. Actually, there's an exception. So whenever you're trying to build a thin deck, maybe an infinite deck that does have a few cards that exhaust, you don't want those cards or your infinite to get clogged up with a bunch of useless cards you get from Dead Branch. But that's, I think, the only exception. Usually, you do want to get as many cards as possible, and a lot of runs were saved by having the Dead Branch. It's an extremely powerful relic. A lot of people mention that is way too OP to be in the game, especially together with Corruption. It's just an unbeatable combo. Actually, I think a bunch of my Ascension 20 runs were beaten with that combination. So yeah, amazing relic, definitely top S tier. I would even argue the best relic in the game. Alright, next we have Duvidol. For each creature in the deck, starts come with 1 strength. A doll devised to gain strength from malicious energy. So Duvidol, I will put in B tier. Now, this is, for dailies, it is B tier. Obviously, for Ascension runs, you are trying to avoid curses as much as you can, so there, Duvidol is not that useful. For dailies, you are trying to pick up curses, and effectively, I would say, on average, I am able to get more than 1 curse in each daily, and I think that means that you have, with Duvidol, at least 1 strength, if not more, and then that makes it better in Vajra, for sure. Vajra only gives you 1 strength, and then ideally, you would get at least 5 curses, which allows you to have 5 strength with Vajra, with Duvidol, which is pretty good. And especially in curse runs, it can become really powerful. You can end up with a lot of curses, especially with Hoarder. So yeah, solid B tier relic. Yeah, let's move on. Next, we have a defect-only relic, the Emotion Chip. If you lost HP during the previous turn, trigger the passive ability of all orbs at the start of your current turn. And there's a nice heart emoji here. So this is, I think, F tier. Alright, I think Emotion Chip is F tier. So one of the reasons it is F tier, especially for dailies, it is actually kind of nice for Ascension 20 runs. But the reason it's F tier for dailies is because you need to lose HP for it to trigger. And for the defect, that'll only happen if you lose HP, which means you will lose a perfect. Or if you have one of the very few curses that makes you lose HP. So mostly it's the pain and the regret, right? So unless you have those two, it's going to be pretty useless. So by putting it in F tier, what I really mean is it shouldn't be a rare relic. It should be uncommon for dailies. Again, I can see an argument if you have a run that does accept some damage. Maybe you have Frost Drop, but not that many. Having something like Emotion Chip can definitely help. And then next we have Fossilized Helix. Prevent the first time you would lose HP each combat. Seemingly indestructible. You wonder what kind of creature this belonged to. So Fossilized Helix is definitely an S tier as well. A really powerful relic. There are a lot of runs where I was saved by it. I was able to perfect things because of it. Especially there are a bunch of elites and bosses on Act 2 and Act 3 that rely on being able to overwhelm you with one huge attack. And Fossilized Helix just negates that. I'm thinking of the Nemesis. I'm thinking of the Bronze Automaton. So yeah, just an amazing relic. A top S tier for me. The next we have Gambling Chip. At the start of each combat, discard any number of cards and then draw that many cards. You can see a small inscription on the side. It reads, Bear's Lucky Chip. Oh, interesting. I got that from Bear, one of the 3 robbers from which I get the red mask. Okay, so I think this is also S tier. It is really powerful. Now, it doesn't appear S tier because... yeah, it just doesn't seem that powerful. You basically get a second attempt to draw an opening hand. But especially in dailies where the opening hand is very important to be able to defend, to be able to set up your powers and be able to attack and finish things quickly, having the Gambling Chip at the beginning is really powerful. Also, if you have Wraith's Curses, which means that your opening hand is clogged with a bunch of junk, you can remove them with Gambling Chip. So yeah, I think this is an S relic. It is a little lower on the S tier rank, but it is definitely an S tier relic. Alright, next we have Ginger, and I will put the Turnip together with Ginger. So you can no longer become weakened, a potent tool in many tonics. Yeah, this is F tier for me. It is nice, but I think this should be uncommon. I mean, being weakened is annoying. I don't think if it is worth a rare relic to not be weakened. Now, of course, it is nice if you have the Doubt Curse, so that way you just don't have to worry about that. But ultimately, especially for dailies, I don't think this deserves a rare relic title. I think this should be uncommon. So yeah, definitely F tier for me. And spoiler, I feel the same way about Turnip. The next you have Girya. You can now gain strength at rest sites up to 3 times. This Girya is unfathomably heavy. You could train with this to get significantly stronger. So for me, this is D tier. It's a neutral relic. If I get it, I won't complain. I don't think I will really pay a lot of money to buy it in the shop, especially because a rare relic, it will be pretty expensive. And ultimately, at most, you can only get 3 extra strength, and you do have to sacrifice 3 upgrades. By not upgrading at rest sites. So yeah, decent relic, nothing too amazing. It is one of those relics that if I get it with heirloom, I'm fine with it, I'll use it, but otherwise I'm unlikely to use it in dailies. The next we have Golden Eye, which is a Watcher-only relic. Whenever you scry 2 additional cards, see into the minds of those nearby, predicting their future moves. So this is also a D relic. Again, it is neutral. If I get it, I won't complain. It is a nice relic to have. Being able to scry 2 additional cards is always nice. Now, admittedly, it does require you to have some scry capabilities. And, you know, the Watcher does have access to a bunch of scry cards. But, yeah, I think it can be better. Not a horrible relic, but I wouldn't go out of my way to buy it. The next we have Ice Cream. Energy is not conserved between turns. Ice Cream is an A tier relic. I was thinking of putting it in S tier. Now the problem is that it is only useful if you don't consistently spend your energy. So what was it, 3 days ago or 4 days ago at this point, I did have a run where I did have it. I didn't have extra energy. I only had 3 energy, but I still was able to save a lot of the energy. And then I think I had a skewer where I was able to deal a lot of damage with the accumulated energy. But that required a few things to happen at the same time, which means I needed to have enough energy and I needed to delay fights long enough to actually be able to use it. So that's why that's what I mean when I say it's an A tier relic. It is a great relic in almost all situations, but there are some situations where it's not amazing. But yeah, definitely on the top of A tier, really good relic. I should also read the splash text. It just says delicious. Okay. Next we have Incense Burner. Every 6 turns gain 1 intangible. The smoke imbues its owner with the spirit of the burned. So Incense Burner is an S tier relic, just like the Fossilized Helix. The benefit with Incense Burner is that it can protect you against multi-hit attacks or attacks from multiple enemies. You just need some block to be able to not take any damage, because intangibility does not negate the damage, it just reduces the damage. Now, as opposed to Fossilized Helix, which prevents the damage, but it only does it once. So if you have a multi-hit or multiple enemies, then the first hit is protected, but the second hit might not. Whereas with Incense Burner, you just need to defend, and you can defend against 5 separate attack cards. So yeah, really powerful, even more powerful in Ascension run. So yeah, definite Incense Burner, or S tier for me here. Then next we have Lizard Tail. Whenever you die, heal to 50% of your max HP instead. This only works once. A fake tail to trick enemies during combat, although I'm not sure why enemies would be confused by a fake lizard tail coming out of one of the characters. But so this is a D tier for me. Again, this is for dailies. Because dying is so rare in dailies, it is a nice relic. I wouldn't put it in F tier because, you know, sometimes I do use it. But ultimately, I think this is much more powerful in Ascension runs because it basically gives you like a nice out. It's almost like Fossilized Helix, right? It allows you to take 1 big damage and then, you know, heal back up a little bit. But yeah, ultimately for dailies, I don't think it's better than D tier. Then we have Magic Flower, an Ironclad only relic. Healing is 50% more effective during combat. A flower long thought extinct, somehow preserved in perfect condition. So I'm not a huge fan of this. This is F tier. So it is not the worst card, but I don't think for dailies it is useful in any way. So for Ascension 20, it's actually really nice because I think one of the main Ascension 20 strategies with the Ironclad is to have Reaper in your deck. So when you have Reaper, Magic Flower actually works really well with it, and then you can accumulate strength and sort of lose a lot of HP in a fight, but then heal it all back up. In regular daily runs, it's not that useful because you are trying to avoid losing HP, so you don't really need that much healing. Again, it is nice, but I don't think it is worth a rare relic in dailies. I think for dailies, it would be more of an uncommon relic. So yeah, definite F tier for me with the Magic Flower. Then we have Mango here. Up and pickup, raise your max HP by 14. The most coveted forgotten fruit, impeccably preserved with no signs of Spire Blight. So Mango for me is slightly higher than the other fruits. So I put it on B tier, whereas pear and strawberry were C tier. And the reason for that is that Mango just by itself is almost enough to to allow you to get the well-fed or stuff modifier, right? 40 max HP, you just need one more to get the well-fed, so that's an extra 25 points at the end of the score. And I mean, it does make sense. It is a rare relic, so it does make sense. But yeah, for me, I think it is B tier, decent relic to have, and I usually buy it at a shop, hoping to get extra points out of it. The next we have Old Coin. On pickup, gain 300 gold. Unique coins are highly valued by merchants for their historical value and rare metallic composition. So Old Coin for me is a B tier relic. Now, it does require you to have a shop. It is a decent relic. I'm not going to complain about that, especially if you get it early on. That does allow you to get some boost to be able to buy stuff at the shop. I don't think it's much higher than B tier though, because if you get it towards the end, if you get it late, or if you get it when you don't have another shop coming up, it is fairly useless. But yeah, generally pretty decent relic. I'll take it. The next we have Peace Pipe. You can now remove cards from your deck at rest sites, clears the mind and cleanses the soul. So Peace Pipe in my mind is a D tier relic. Now it is only useful if you're trying to go for Highlander and you desperately need to remove cards. Now that does actually happen frequently enough, especially if you're trying to go for Curse and Highlander, have an extra curse and then Peace Pipe shows up to rescue you and allow you to remove the duplicate to be able to still get Highlander and or curses. It is a very niche case. I think most of the time in dailies you are trying not to remove cards to get to Encyclopedian, and so yeah, Peace Pipe is not that useful there. So in general, I will put it in D tier. It can be good in some situations, but usually it's not. It's just a relic that exists. So yeah, D tier for me. Then we have Pocketwatch. Whenever you play 3 or less cards during your turn, draw 3 additional cards at the start of your next turn. The hand seems stuck on the 3 o'clock position. Alright, so Pocketwatch for me is an A tier relic. Now, it is not S tier because it requires you to not play a lot of cards to be useful. But whenever you have a deck where you have usually every turn you play 3, 4, or 5 cards, it does make sense to purposely only play 3 cards so you have the extra 3 card draw. So if you have a deck which deals a lot of damage with very few cards, this basically allows you to draw 8 cards every turn, which is huge. There are definitely some dailies where I wasn't able to perfect the boss and then I reloaded and just aggressively used the Pocketwatch on every turn, and that allowed me to actually perfect things. So yeah, that's why I think it deserved the A tier. Not enough to get the S tier designation, but I think A tier is pretty good for Pocketwatch. The next we have Prayer Wheel. Normal enemies drop an additional card reward. The wheel continues to spin, never stopping. So Prayer Wheel for dailies I think is a B tier. It is a B tier only because it does help get more collect bonuses. And usually in dailies, if it's one character or one color cards, it does make sense to try to go for collect bonuses. For Ascension 20 runs, I don't think it's that great of a card because there you're trying to keep your deck thin. Now, admittedly, if it does show up early enough, it does increase the chance of you drawing the right cards or getting offered the right cards. But generally, I mean, B tier is pretty good. I will take B tier. I will put this in B tier. I will buy it in the shop if I see it because, again, it does help getting collect bonuses. If I'm trying to go for Highlander, I might still take it because it does allow me to pick up a bigger variety of cards, and that might help my synergies in the deck. The next we have Shovel. You can now dig for relics at rest sites. The Spire houses all number of relics from past civilizations and powerful adventures lost to time. Time to go dig them up. So the Shovel for me is A tier for dailies. I think for Ascension 20 runs it will be S tier because it is really powerful. Basically allows you to substitute elites with rest sites and still get a relic out of it. For dailies, it is A tier. It does help you get I like shiny. Sometimes it is not that useful, mostly because you do sometimes need to upgrade things, and then sometimes you get relics out of it that are not that very necessary. But yeah, still overall, I think A tier relic. I do wonder. I could imagine some people putting this into S tier. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you disagree. I do think this is A tier. How about top of A tier? Yeah. Alright, then next we have Stone Calendar. At the end of turn 7, deal 52 damage to all enemies. The passage of time is imperceptible in the Spire. So for me, Stone Calendar is a D tier relic, and I was actually considering putting it under F tier. It is pretty powerful being able to deal 52 damage to all enemies, especially on Act 1, where this is enough to basically get rid of everything. Of course, assuming you can survive until turn 7. Now, one of the reasons I don't like it a lot is because it makes it harder to get combos. So in a lot of fights, especially I'm thinking of the Mystic fight on Act 2, you are trying to stall the fight to be able to get combo, and then this usually deals enough damage to, finish the fight for you after turn 7. So sometimes it can be detrimental, but most of the time it does deal a good amount of damage only if you wait that long, which is why I think it's D tier. It is neutral. I won't complain, but I don't think I'll pay a lot of money unless I have it and have nothing else to do with it, or unless I have I have a deck that does not have a lot of attacks, that relies more on defensive capabilities, in which case having Stone Calendar deal 52 damage can be useful. Then next we have the Specimen. Whenever an enemy dies, transfer any poison it has to a random enemy. Fascinating. I found a mutated creature demonstrating astounding toxic properties, storing a sample for later examination, according to Randwit. So for me, this is not that good for a relic, mostly because I think it's you need to build a poison deck with the silent for it to be very useful, and that does not happen that often. So I will put it in there under D tier. It is very useful for poison builds, especially if you have something like Twisted Funnel, which allows you to apply 4 poison on all enemies. So once you get rid of one of them, you can apply that poison thanks to Specimen on another enemy. So it can be really good, especially with Noxious Fumes. But because I don't build that many poison decks in dailies, poison decks take too long to become useful, right? In dailies, you have to try to perfect quickly before taking damage, so poison decks are not usually the way to go. Again, would be pretty good for Ascension 20 runs, but I think for dailies, it is only D tier. The next we have Thread Needle. Started come with 4-plated armor. Wrapping the magical thread around your body, you feel harder to the touch. Okay, so that one I was debating between S tier and A tier. I ended up putting it under A tier, mostly because 4-plate armor is nice. It ultimately, at the end of Act 3, does not make that big of a difference, whether you have 4-plate armor or, 5 or 3. It is very little, but it is still very powerful, especially early on, especially with interaction of other relics and cards. So yeah, I think that's why it deserves an A tier. Yeah, it's not at the very top, but it is a pretty good relic, so I'm always happy to see it, right? Next we have Tingsha. That's a silent-only relic. Whenever you discard a card during your turn, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. The sound this instrument generates seems to be capable of reverberating to painful levels of volume. So Tingsha for me is B tier. Now, of course, it is very useful if you have a discard synergy deck, which I have to admit for the silent is probably the best type of deck to do well in dailies, right? Because it basically guarantees that you can draw enough cards to possibly be able to defend. You don't have to worry about not drawing the right cards on the right turns if you build a discard synergy deck. Because of that, it is helpful. Now, I don't think it does make sense to build a deck around it. Now, admittedly, if I get Tingsha from Heirloom, I will try more aggressively to pick up discard synergies. But honestly, I'm trying to do that anyway. So yeah, it does help. It's not amazing. I think B tier is appropriate for Tingsha. Then next we got Torii. Whenever you'd receive 5 or less unlocked attack damage, reduce it to 1. Holding the small Torii, you feel a sense of calm and safety drift through your mind. So for me, Torii is a C tier relic. It is a decent relic. It is good in certain situations, but it does not make you immune from taking damage, right? It only decreases whatever you get less than 5 to 1, which means that you will still lose a perfect. Still, it is nice. It also can be really good for some other relics that I'll mention in a second. It is nice to have, but I wouldn't go super crazy over it. So yeah, a C tier from me. Then we have Tough Bandages, another silent-only relic. Whenever you discard a card during your turn, gain 3 block. So this is A tier. Now, it is similar to Tingsha because it does rely on discard synergies, and I'm always trying to do discard synergies for daily. But instead of dealing 3 damage to a random enemy, which admittedly against like something like the Giant Head is nothing, it does give you block, which can be really powerful, which is why I put it in A tier. The reason it's not S tier is because it's not always that you're guaranteed to have a discard synergy deck. So if you don't have any discard, it is useless. Now, in combination with some other relics like the Gambling Ship, this becomes really powerful too. So yeah, definitely A tier for me. Then we have Tungsten Rod. Whenever you lose HP, lose 1 less. It's very, very heavy. So Tungsten Rod is by itself a really good relic. I put it on A tier. It is amazing. It makes you lose 1 less damage. If you're intangible, it makes you lose 0 damage. The reason it's not S tier is because that 1 damage is not that huge of a deal. Now, together with Torii, I think it is S tier. Because with Torii and Tungsten Rod, basically what happens is any damage less than or equal to 5 is negated, which is huge. Like, for example, you can imagine, even at Ascension 20, you can imagine the heart attacking you for 5 times 15, and you just take no damage because of Tungsten Rod. So yeah, I think that together with the Torii is S tier. By itself, it is still A tier, which is really powerful. Great relic to have, as always. Then we have the Turnip here, which I will lump together with the Ginger, and you can no longer become frail, best with Ginger. Yep, together they are both F tier. I mean, it's nice to have, but I don't think they should be rare relics. I think uncommon, especially for the dailies. I think they're fine there. Then next we have Unceasing Top. Whenever you have no cards in hand during your turn, draw a card. The top continues to spin effortlessly as if you were in a dream. Is that a reference to Inception? It might be. So Unceasing Top for dailies, I think is D tier. Now for Ascension 20 runs, it is amazing. I would even consider it A tier or even S tier because you are trying to build a thin deck with lots of card draws, and so that this basically guarantees a bunch of card draw. But for dailies, it can be useful sometimes, but usually you are trying to pick up curses. They usually stop any sort of chain that you're trying to do with Unceasing Top, and then it does require a lot of energy. It does require zero cost decks, so there are a few requirements. Now, admittedly, it does allow you to get combo if you get, a lot of energy and a lot of card draw. But yeah, ultimately, I think for daily runs, it is only D tier. And then last but not least, Wing Boots. You may ignore path when choosing the next room to travel to 3 times. Stylish. Alright, this is definitely S tier. It is an amazing relic. Now, the only disadvantage is that it's always hard when you get it early on. It's hard to decide when to use it. I like to use it usually twice on Act 2 and once on Act 3. No, once on Act 2 and twice on Act 3, because a lot of times I got burned by the fact that I just wasn't able to use it to maximize elites on Act 3. But yeah, ultimately, it is a powerful relic. For dailies, it is amazing. For Ascension runs, it's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's S tier for Ascension runs, but for dailies, it's definitely an S tier relic. Amazing relic to have here. Alright, so now with all the rare cards off the way, let's open up the rankings and rank them there. Alright, so I'm back with Tiermaker here. We have the tiers set up. Let's start with Bird-Faced Urn. So, of course, at the beginning, it'll be a little boring. Once I have to decide between them within a rank, it'll be more interesting. Captain's Wheel is B tier. Champion spelled, I said, okay, B tier. So here, I think Champion build, it's hard to compare because there's an Ironclad only relic. I do think it is better because hopefully by the time turn 3 comes around, I already will have my block sorted out, and this applies weakness, which I think is higher up than the Captain's Wheel. I hope that was the right decision. Charon's Ashes I put in C tier, and Cloak Clasp I put in S tier, yep. Then next we have Dead Branch. That is unquestionably the top relic in the game. Next we have Duvodol, which I put in B tier. It is... this is tough. I do think it is the best in B tier at the moment. Then next we have Emotion Chip, which I did put under F tier, right? Yeah, I think they're very similar. I think Bird-Faced Urn might be slightly better, so let's keep it here. Fossilized Helix is S tier, and after Dead Branch, yep. Then next we have Gambling Chip, S tier. I think it is towards the end, though. It can be useful, but, it's not at the top of S tier. Then we have Ginger and Turnip together, which I both put in F tier. They are slightly more useful than the others, but yeah, I do think they should be uncommon, not rare relics. Then we have Girya, which I put in D tier. First thing in D tier. Ice Cream is A tier. Probably better than Calipers, yep. Then we have Incense... Oh, no, Golden Eye, right. I'd put it under D tier. So, yeah, I think it's after Girya. Girya can still be pretty powerful. The next Incense Burner is definitely S tier. Between Incense Burner and Fossilized Helix, this triggers on every fight, and this triggers once every 6 turns. But it's much more powerful once every 6 turns. Still, I think because it triggers once every 6 turns, Fossilized Helix is better. Then we have Lizard Tail, which I had in D tier, just because dying is so rare. I put it at the end. Mango is B tier because it does allow you... It is low B tier, though, right? Because I think all the other fruits were C tier. So, yeah, I'll put it closer to C tier then. Then next we have Magic Flower, which I am not a huge fan of. Let's put it in F tier. I'll put it... actually, let's put it in here. Yeah, it's not that great of a relic, I think, in dailies again. Then we have Old Coin here, which is a B tier. Now, it does have a lot of requirements. You need to have a shop, etc., but it is a pretty good relic to have. Free gold, basically. Then next we have Peace Pipe, which I put in D tier. Only useful if you're going for Highlander. I will put it high D tier. Next, we have Pocketwatch, which, as I explained, can be really powerful. I think it is actually above the Calipers then. Next, Prayer Wheel. For dailies, it can be really powerful. Let's put it... it is B tier. Let's put it in the middle of B tier. Then next, we got Shovel, which I think is A tier and fairly high up A tier. Let's actually put it above the Ice Cream because, yeah, it can be a substitute for elites, give you extra relic, allow you to get Alex Shiny, and get your relics that you might be able to use to perfect more elites and bosses. So, yeah, pretty good there. Then Stone Calendar, I was debating between D and Z tier. Let's put it at the bottom of D tier. Specimen, I think because it is such a niche card, is also D tier, and I think that should be in the middle. Thread and Needle, I will put in A tier, really high up, although I guess Shovel, actually it's even better than a Shovel, right? Now I think about it, let's put the Ice Cream above the Shovel. Yeah, I think this is the better representation of A tier. Then next we have Tingsha, which I put in B tier. Again, requires Discard Synergy, but once you have it, it's pretty good. Let's put it sort of in the middle here, okay? And next you have Torii, which by itself is not that great. Let's put it in C tier. Probably better than the Charon's Ashes. And then again, together with the Tungsten Rod, it will be S tier, but I am judging them separately. Tough Bandages is A tier. Again, because you have a lot of discard synergy, I think I'll put it after the Shovel. Then next you have Tungsten Rod, which is also A tier, and it is pretty high up on A tier because it can allow you to basically handle vulnerability or intangibility. Let's put it here, third place on A tier. Unceasing Top, as I mentioned, not that useful in dailies. I'll put it somewhere in the middle of D tier. And then Wing Boots, definitely S tier for me. Oh, this is actually a tough choice. Which of these do I want to replace? I think it is, for the points that you get, it is second best. Yeah. So I think this is the final final tier list for rare relics. Let me save this as an image, and then let's continue on in this video to look at the remaining relics, which are shop relics, boss relics, and I guess special relics you get from events. Alright, so let's continue with the boss relics. Similar ranking as before, S being top, A is great, B is good, C is decent, D is neutral, and F is horrible. Better not to take any relic at all. Alright, so we started with the Astrolabe. Up and pick up, transform 3 cards and then upgrade them. A tool to glean invaluable knowledge from the stars. So for me, Astrolabe is a C tier relic. It's more of a last resort type of relic. It is, actually, I guess I should put it in D tier, right? You know what? Let's put it in D tier. Mostly because it is neutral. Like, sometimes it can be good if you basically have nothing else to do. Other times it can be pretty bad. So I think generally D tier is pretty deserved for Astrolabe. And again, if you're trying to go for Highlander or Pauper, it might give me duplicates. It might give you duplicates or rare cards that you then have to remove. So yeah, mixed bag, depends a lot on luck. Only useful in an emergency. Then next we have an Ironclad only relic, the Black Blood relic, replaces Burning Blood. At the end of combat, heal 12 HP. The rage grows darker. So Black Blood for me is an F tier relic. Now, healing is not that important in dailies, so I guess I should put it in D tier, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not S tier, F tier. It is D tier, mostly because, I mean, if I don't have any other options, it's not that I'm not going to take it, right? Because it doesn't give me any negative side effect. It just allows me to heal back more. But ultimately, it is very low on the D tier list, mostly because I don't really need it. Healing is not that impressive. It is sometimes necessary. I would rarely pick it over other relics, though. I think it is bottom of D tier, well-deservedly. I will still take it. It's not completely useless. Then next we have Black Star, Elite Storm Disher relic when defeated, originally discovered in the town of the Serpent beside a solitary candle. Black Star for me is an S tier relic. It does make it easier to get the I Like Shiny modifier, which is 50 extra points. It makes it easier to get more relics faster, which allows you to get a higher score, possibly perfecting more elites and bosses. So yeah, overall S tier relic, really good relic to have, and one of the best boss relics. Then next we have Busted Crown, gain energy at the start of your turn. Future card rewards have 2 less cards to choose from. The Champ's Crown, or a Pale Limitation. So Busted Crown for me is a C tier relic in dailies. The lack of being able to choose cards is harder, regardless of whether or not you're going for Highlander or Collectibles. For Collectibles, it is disastrous. You won't be able to get any, or at least not that many. For Highlander, it's also really bad because it makes it harder to get Encyclopedian and Librarian. Still, it is nice to have the extra energy, which is why it's not in D tier, but ultimately because it is so difficult, I don't think it deserves anything above C tier. The next we have Calling Bell, up and pick up to unique curse and 3 relics. This dark iron bell rang 3 times when you found it, but now stays silent. So for me, the bell is S tier. It is probably better than Black Star. Well, usually if I get it offered on after Act 1, I do tend to take the Black Star because it'll end up giving more relics. On Act 2, I'll take the bell, but unfortunately, because you're usually trying to get curses, you have to take the bell because it gives you a unique curse. So regardless if you're going for Collectibles or Highlander, it is really nice to get a curse. And then, of course, with the 3 relics you get, you are guaranteed to get 1 common, 1 uncommon, and 1 rare. And so that rare relic might be really good. You might get Winged Boots out of it. So yeah, it's really powerful. The best boss relic there is, I think. So definitely S tier for me. Then next we have Coffee Dripper. Gain energy at the start of your turn. You can no longer rest at rest sites. For me, Coffee Dripper is A tier. Oh, the smash test says, yes, another cup please. Back to work, back to work. So yeah, it is A tier. It is not S tier because sometimes it can harm you not being able to rest. So that may, of course, be a problem sometimes, but most of the time, because HP is not a problem, this basically transcends to getting you free energy, which is really good. So it's probably one of the most frequent boss relics I take because, you know, again, you are not worried about dying in dailies. You're more worried about being able to deal enough damage. Alright, then next we have Curse Key. Gain energy at the start of your turn. Whenever you open a non-boss chest to obtain a curse, you can feel the malicious energy emanating from the key. Power comes at a price. Curse Key for me is an A tier relic. Now, the only reason it's not S tier is because it might ruin a Highlander run. So, for example, if you have 4 unique curses and then a treasure chest, you open it up, instead of giving you a 5th unique curse, it gives you a duplicate, you lose the Highlander modifier. So that's the only downside it has. Other than that, in Ascension runs, it's actually pretty bad because you are trying to avoid getting curses. But in dailies, where curses are beneficial for the score, of course, it basically gives you free curses and then it also gives you extra energy. So yeah, definite A tier for me, top on the A tier list. Then we have Ectoplasm. Gain energy at the start of your turn. You can no longer gain gold. This blob of slime and energy seems to pulse with life. So Ectoplasm for me is F tier. This is something I will actively try to avoid. I did pick it up a few times, but for dailies, gold is essential. And yeah, you not being able to get any more gold is a big problem. So definite F tier for dailies. For regular Ascension runs, even for Ascension runs, unless you have a lot of gold already, I wouldn't recommend it just because gold is important to be able to buy more stuff. So yeah, I do think this is a well-deserved F tier. Then next we have Empty Cage. Upon pickup, remove 2 cards from your deck. How unusual to cage that which you worship. Ranwood. So Empty Cage for me is C tier, mostly because in Essential runs it would be much higher. It'll be very useful to be able to remove 2 cards. In daily runs, the only times it becomes useful is if you're trying to go for Highlander and you start with Specialized, for example, if you have duplicates, or if you accidentally picked up a duplicate curse, it does help remove it. It is, the only reason it's not lower is because it can have its uses sometimes. If I see it, I'm not going to ignore it. You know what? I'm going to put it in D tier here. Just because, again, if I see it, I'm not going to say I'm not going to take it, but, you know, I'm also not going to seek it out unless there's a strong reason to. Alright, next we have a defect-only relic, the Frozen Core. Replaces Cracked Core. If you enter turn with any empty orb slots, channel 1 Frost. The crack in your core has been filled with a pulsating cold energy. So Frozen Core is an A tier relic. It does take a while to become effective, but it is really powerful, especially if you get it with Inserter. You are able to just generate a lot of Frost Orbs, and then you just need a little bit of focus or a little bit of the ability to evoke those orbs, and you can basically turtle forever against any enemies. Some of my most fun runs against the Spire have involved having Frozen Core, having a lot of orb slots, and just basically being able to turtle forever. So yeah, a really good relic to have. The only reason it's not S tier is because it does take a while to become effective, but once it's effective, you're basically done free. Then we have Fusion Hammer. Gain energy at the start of your turn. You can no longer smith at rest sites. Once wielded, the owner can never let go. So Fusion Hammer for me is a B tier relic. So upgrades are relatively important. Energy is also really important. So it's always a trade-off. It's really hard to rank this relic. Now, in some, for example, if there's a Midas modifier, Fusion Hammer actually becomes really great because you can already no longer smith at red side, so you basically get free extra energy. But other than that, you have to make a decision whether or not you're okay with not upgrading anything, whether or not you already upgrade everything you wanted. So that's why it is B tier. It is a solid relic, does give you extra energy, but nothing too amazing. The next we have Holy Water. It replaces Pure Water. At the start of each combat, add 3 miracles into your hand, collected from a time before the Spire. This is a Watcher-only relic. I do like it in certain situations. It has a lot of good synergies. For example, if you have Dead Branch, it works well. If you have something like Cloak Clasp, it does give you extra block, having 2 extra retained miracles. But ultimately, overall, I would put it in B tier. And yeah, basically, if you don't have those synergies, it is a one-time boost of 2 extra energy, which again can be useful, but the one-time useness of it makes it not the best relic. Still, it is a pretty good, decent relic. Also, the fact that it replaces a relic you already have makes it a little annoying for the I Like Shiny modifier. Still, decent relic, B tier, well deserved. Then we have Hovering Kite, a silent-only relic. The first time you discard a card each turn, gain extra energy. The kite floats around you in battle, propelled by a mysterious force. So Hovering Kite for me is A tier because silent decks usually try to go for a discard deck. So this basically guarantees that you have extra energy on almost every turn. Now, sometimes if you don't have a discard deck, even if you don't have a discard deck, your starter deck for the silent has a survivor, so you always will have some discard. It'll just trigger less often. Still, it is pretty powerful. Free energy for almost no downside if you have the right synergy, which is why I think it's well deserved A tier. Now, if it was more consistent, then I would put it in S tier. But yeah, I think for now A tier is appropriate. Then we have a defect-only relic, the Inserter. Every 2 turns gain 1 orb slot. So Inserter just by itself is only B tier. So it's only useful if you have a lot of orb generation. And sometimes it can actually be pretty bad. If, for example, you have a Dark Orb with Symbiotic Virus, for example, and you don't have a lot of orb generation because of Inserter, it might make it impossible to actually evoke that Dark Orb, or it'll take it too long. Now, by itself, I will put it in B tier. Together with the Frozen Core, that combination is S tier. It is amazing to have both of them together. But Inserter alone can be great sometimes, can be bad sometimes, so I think it goes into B tier. Then we have Mark of Pain, an Ironclad only relic. Gain energy at the start of your turn. At the start of combat, to shuffle 2 wounds into your draw pile. This brand was used by the northern tribes to signify warriors who had mastered pain in battle. So this for me is a C tier relic. Wounds are really annoying. It does give you extra energy, and if you have a large deck, 2 cards out of like 50 is not that big of a deal. 2 cards out of 20 is a relatively big deal. Now, the Ironclad does have ways to deal with the wounds, but ultimately it is situation dependent, which is why I think C tier is appropriate. It can be useful, but more often than not, it doesn't really fit the deck for dailies again. Then a defect-only relic, Nuclear Battery. At the start of each combat, channel 1 plasma. Ooh. So Nuclear Battery can be really nice if you have a lot of orb generation. I will put it in A tier. With the orb generation, it does allow you to evoke it and then gain 2 extra energy as a one-time boost. If you don't evoke it, you get 1 extra energy every turn. So it is pretty good. The only times where it's not great, and that's why it doesn't get the S tier rating, is if you evoke the orb really quickly. If you, for example, have like 2 upgraded chills and they fill out your orb slots, and then you basically lose the effect of the Nuclear Battery on turn 1. So that's one of the reasons where Nuclear Battery is not always amazing, but still a great relic to have, definite A tier. Then next we have Pandora's Box. Upon pickup, transform all strikes and defense. So, and the splash test is, you have a bad feeling about opening this. Yes, I definitely do. So in my mind, Pandora's Box is F tier. Now, it can be useful, but often it is not. It is useful, especially if you have any of the eggs, which means all the cards you get, or the skills, attacks, or powers, whatever you have, you get from Pandora's Box will be upgraded. But other than that, it is very luck dependent. If you get lucky, you get good cards. If you get unlucky, you get horrible cards. You lose all of your defense. You don't pick up any other defensive cards, which definitely happened for me a few times. So yeah, it is a mixed bag. Overall, I think it is F tier. I will only take it if it's an emergency and my deck is doing really poorly so far and I need something to shake it up. But yeah, otherwise, definitely F tier for me. Then we have Philosopher's Stone. Gain energy at the start of your turn. All enemies start combat with 1 strength. Raw energy emanates from the stone, empowering all nearby. So for me, Philosopher's Stone is solid B tier, and the reason for that is that the extra strength it gives all the enemies can be really annoying, especially the Act 3 bosses. All of them having extra strength, really tough to handle. Now, if with the extra energy you are able to gain a lot of block and be able to handle those increases in strength, then that's fine. It does not happen that often. It's always a shame to lose a perfect because you didn't have 1 extra block and then you sort of blame the Philosopher's Stone. Now, on the other hand, it does give you energy, and if you are confident, it doesn't really cause you any harm, which is why I put it in B tier. It can be good, it can be bad. Then next we have Ring of the Serpent. Replaces Ring of the Snake at the start of your turn and draw 1 additional card. Your ring has morphed and changed forms. So this is an upgrade over the Ring of the Snake from the Silent. It is interesting. So for Ascension runs, I'm not even sure if I should take it for Ascension runs. So basically, the Ring of the Snake allows you to draw 2 additional cards on turn 1, and then no extra cards later on. The Ring of the Serpent allows you to instead draw 1 additional card every turn. So it only becomes a net benefit after turn 3. And yeah, I don't know. I think I put it in B tier just because it can be useful sometimes. I will take it. It does replace the Ring of the Snake, and ultimately it becomes net beneficial only after 3 turns. It is more consistent though, so, you know, drawing an extra card does make things a little easier for consistency's sake. But ultimately, yeah, I think only B tier for the Ring of the Serpent. Then we have the 3 Runic stuff. We have Runic Cube. Whenever you lose HP, draw 1 card. Runic Dome, gain energy at the start of your turn. You can no longer see enemy intents. And Runic Pyramid. At the end of your turn, you no longer discard your hand, and all of the splash tests reads the runes are indecipherable. Let's start with the Runic Cube. Runic Cube is an Ironclad only relic. I put it in C tier. It is not amazing. I will take it because I usually with the Ironclad have self-damage, and even if I don't have self-damage, usually I have a Regret or a Pain. Although I guess Regret is less useful because it draws it at the end of the turn, so Pain is slightly more valuable. But yeah, so it's only useful in that particular niche. Usually it is not that great, but still, it's a decent thing to have, so I will put it in C tier. Runic Dome is F tier for me. Now, I know some people love Runic Dome, and David is one of them who does like to take it. The problem is, if you take Runic Dome, you are sort of forcing yourself to do, if you want to do well in a daily, you're forcing yourself to have to reload a lot, which I try to avoid, which is why I can't take, well, not can't, but I don't want to take Runic Dome. The only times that Runic Dome is useful is if you don't care for enemy intents. If, for example, you can kill on turn 1, or you can defend on turn 1, regardless of what the enemy does, which I definitely have a few runs where I did use Runic Dome, but ultimately, I think for dailies in general, I think it is F tier. And then lastly, we have from the Runic stuff, we got a Runic Pyramid. Runic Pyramid is not too bad. I put it in B tier, so it can be great sometimes if you have cards that you want to wait to be able to play, like Feed and Alchemize. It can be horrible sometimes if you have curses that you can't get rid of, or if you don't generally have enough exhaust and discard synergies. So it is a mixed bag, but more often than not, I think it is useful, which is why I put it in B tier. Then next we have Sacred Bark, double the effectiveness of potions. Sacred Bark is, in my mind, an A tier relic. Now, because dailies rely a lot on potions, having all the potions be double in effectiveness. Wait, did I read the splash tag? A bark rumored to originate from the World Tree. So yeah, having double all of the potion effects is really powerful. For example, the Heart of Iron that you get from the Ironclad gives you 6 block, and then with Sacred Bark it gives you 12 block, which is insane. Really valuable for boss fights. So yeah, I think solid A tier. The only reason it's not S tier because it does require potions. If you get unlucky, if you don't have enough potions, or if you have something like Sozu, it is slightly less valuable, but still really powerful relic. I would even argue top on the A tier list. Then we have Slaver's Collar. During boss and elite combats, gain extra energy at the start of your turn. Rusty, miserable chains. In my mind, the Slaver's Collar is an S tier relic. It is a great relic because it gives you energy in the fights that matter for getting a higher score, so boss and elite fights, and it doesn't have a downside. Now, the only downside I can see is that because you don't have extra energy in regular floor fights, especially on Act 3, those might become more difficult, but ultimately, it doesn't matter for the score, right? It only matters to perfect elites and bosses, so there it is amazing. Definite S tier for me with the Slaver's Collar. Then we have Snecko Eye. At the start of your turn, draw 2 additional cards, start each combat confused. An eye of a fallen Snecko, much larger than you imagined. So, Snecko Eye is B tier for me. For Ascension 20 runs, it is S tier. No questions about that. I beat a lot of Ascension runs with the Snecko Eye relic because there you are going for rare cards, you are trying to take high cost cards, and you are trying to draw a lot of cards. For dailies, it is a problem, right? Sometimes, most of the times you are trying to go for Pauper, so you don't want to have too many high cost cards anyway. And then other times, I mean, it's luck dependent, right? So, you know, you may draw a card, which definitely happened to me, where all of the 7 cards you drew were all 3 cost. Unlikely, but happens. And then, of course, the opposite can also happen, where you draw all the cards and a lot of them are 0 cost. So it is a mixed bag. Ultimately, I do think B tier is the best classification for this, just because, yeah, it is a mixed bag. Might be amazing, might be horrible. So, yeah, let's put it in B tier. Then next we have Sozu. Gain energy at the start of your turn. You can no longer obtain potions. You notice that magical liquids seem to lose their properties when near this relic. So Sozu for dailies is, I think, D tier. It can be useful, so I don't want to put it in S tier because it does give you free energy. The problem is that because you rely a lot on potions, not being able to access potions after you get this relic does make things pretty difficult. So yeah, that's why I think Sozu generally, because I like potions, I rarely take it. Still, it can be useful if you're running out of energy, if you desperately need it. You can't sacrifice getting any potions to be able to get that. Yeah, tough decision. I think D tier is appropriate though. We got Tiny House next. Upon pickup, obtain 1 potion, gain 50 gold, raise your max HP by 5, obtain 1 card, and upgrade 1 random card. A near perfect implementation of miniaturization. My finest work to date, but still not adequate. The Architect. So Tiny House in my mind is a C tier relic. It's better than nothing. It doesn't really have a downside, and it might help you get Insignifiant, might help you get well fed. So it is one of those relics that might give you some marginal benefit, doesn't have a downside, and yeah, not a horrible choice. It is low on the C tier list because usually I do sometimes take it over some of the other relics just because the max HP and the extra card can be useful. But yeah, I don't think it can be any higher than that. We got Velvet Choker. Gain energy at the start of your turn. You cannot play more than 6 cards per turn. Immense power, but too limited, according to Kublai the Great. So Velvet Choker for dailies is an F tier relic. Yeah, I can't imagine using it if you are building a deck that plays few cards with high cost, and you don't actually need to play 6 cards. But to be able to get combo, to be able to do well against elites and bosses, I do think you need to be able to play more than 6 cards. And actually, I did take Velvet Choker in the run where I was trying to get the Minimalist achievement, where I was able to use the extra energy to basically go for an almost infinite by playing, I think it was Rampage, right? I was doing Bash, then playing the Rampage, then drawing it again with the Battle Trance. And so there, I didn't have energy to play more than 6 cards per turn. Now, the problem is, I did beat the game with it. I was able to get the the achievement. The problem is, I also wanted to beat the hard with it, and there, Velvet Choker basically just killed me. There's nothing I could have done. I wasn't able to play fast enough because of Velvet Choker. So yeah, ultimately, I do think it is a well-deserved F tier, even for Essential runs. Although, obviously, there are some people who are able to beat it, but still, I think it's very, very bad relic there. We got Violet Lotus. Whenever you exit column, gain additional energy. The old text described that the surface of mana pools were littered with these flowers. So Violet Lotus is, in my mind, a C tier relic. It only works if you exit calm a lot, which does happen admittedly frequently with the Watcher if you're going for a stance shift deck. But ultimately, the one extra energy you get, and usually you only exit Wrath or exit Calm once in the game. Sometimes you don't even exit Calm at all. So there, it is situationally dependent. I don't think it's a great relic. So yeah, I think in my mind it is C tier. It does have its uses. For example, what was it? A week ago, we had a daily where with Specialized we got 5 copies of Like Water, and there, you know, it did make sense to be able to enter Calm more frequently and then exit it again, and that turns into Violet Lotus would potentially being useful if it showed up there. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think I can give it any higher than C tier. And then next we have Wristblade, a silent only relic. So I gave Wristblade A tier, mostly because it works really well with shift decks, and also with a bunch of other synergies. There are a bunch of other cards or relics that make cards cost 0, and they will also be affected by Wristblade. You also have something like Backstab that deals 0 or costs 0 at the beginning. So yeah, it can be really useful in certain scenarios with Silent, which is why it deserves A tier. Also, the splash text reads handy for assassinations. Oh, that was the last one. Okay, good. All right, let's put them all in the rankings here. All right, so let's start with Astrolabe being D tier, Black Blood being D tier as well, and probably below Astrolabe. Black Star being S tier. Busted Crown being C tier, I mentioned, 4 dailies, yep. And then we have Bell, also S tier. I think, the more I think about it, the more I think because of that extra curse I get, it should be top of S tier. Yeah, even before the Black Star. The next we have Coffee Dripper, which I do take a lot, A tier. Black Blood, oh wait, no, I already have Black Blood. Curse Key is A tier as well. The only reason it's A tier is because it might ruin Highlander, and you know what, let's put it above top A tier. The next we have Ectoplasm, which is F tier because gold is very important for dailies. Empty Cage is a D tier. Neutral Relic, I'll take it, but yeah, sometimes it's not that useful. Then we have Frozen Core. Frozen Core is A tier just because it does take a while to become effective. Then next we have Fusion Hammer. Fusion Hammer I had put under B tier. Can be great, can be bad sometimes. Next we have Holy Water. Holy Water is a really powerful relic in certain situations, so let's put it in B tier. Probably above Fusion Hammer. Yeah, because it does work well with a lot of silent Watcher synergies. Then we have Hovering Kite, which is A tier. It is, I think it's good at the end of A tier. You do need to have discard synergies, and all the other relics are more powerful, I think. The next we have Inserter, that I mentioned together with the Frozen Core will be S tier. Alone, I think it is B tier. Again, nice to have, does has its drawbacks if you have a certain type of deck, so yeah, decent B tier, I think. The next we have Mark of Pain. Mark of Pain is C tier, just because the wounds are annoying, and let's put it at the bottom of C tier. Then we have the nuclear battery. Nuclear battery, as I mentioned, does have its benefits, but I think I'll put it in B tier towards the end, closer to C tier, I think. Pandora's box, it's always a gamble. Might be good, might be bad. I am going to put it in F tier, though, because if it's bad, you sort of ruined your whole run. And yeah, you need to be in a bad spot to want to take Pandora's box, and ideally you would not even get to that spot. Then next we have Philosopher's Stone, which I put in B tier. Ooh, where should I rank this? It is useful. It's probably better than the Inserter, but worse than the Fusion Hammer, so let's put it in the middle there. All right, Ring of the Serpent, I think, is B tier. It does replace a relic. It is not bad, but yeah, let's put it at bottom of B tier. Then we have the Runic Cube. Runic Cube is, I think, I did say C tier. I do wonder if I should change it to D tier. No, it can be useful sometimes, especially if you deal, if you have self-damage. So, you know, if I have nothing better offered, I will take it. Runic Dome is F tier. I talked about that enough. Runic Pyramid, in my mind, would be B tier. Where, though? Let's put it also in the middle, because, again, it is situationally dependent. Let's put it right here, okay? And then next we have Sacred Bark, which was very close to being S tier. It is A tier, though, and pretty high up. Let's put it in the middle here. Next, we have a Slaver's Collar, which I think is S tier. Really good relic to have, usually. Snecko Eye is B tier, and in Ascension 21, so it would be really high up, so I kind of am tempted to put it high up, but ultimately, yeah, I think I'll, tough choice. Let's put it after Fusion Hammer on B tier. Then we have Sozu. Sozu is D tier. It's pretty bad. If I'm desperate, I'll take it, but that's probably rarely going to happen. Tiny House is C tier. It's better than nothing. It does have no downsides. It also gives you one extra card, which might help you get Librarian, and extra max HP, which might help you get well-fed or stuffed. But ultimately, I think it is bottom of C tier because it's very close to being sort of neutral. Then next you have Velvet Choker, which I think for, as I mentioned before, for dailies is pretty much F tier. And then Violet Lotus. Violet Lotus, as I also mentioned, C tier, nothing too amazing. Actually, I think bottom C tier because all of these have. Well, actually, sometimes you do use this relic. Let's still keep it bottom of C tier. I'm not a huge fan. I don't really pick it up that often. And then yeah, last but not least, we have the Wristblade. Wristblade is definitely an A tier relic. Especially if you go for a shift deck, it can be really powerful and deal a lot of damage. Let me actually order this up closer to here. Yep. All right. So this is the breakdown of rare cards. Do I want to do the shop cards next? All right. I think for the event and shop relics, I will not do them now because I'm starting to slowly lose my voice and I don't want to sort of rasp throughout the rest. Yeah, so I had no idea how to rank the Brimstone because sometimes it is necessary to survive and perfect. Other times it basically causes premature death. So I think, yeah, the shop relics are all over the place. Same with the event relics. It's really hard to judge event relics too because you don't really usually have a choice, right? You usually have the choice of the event. So yeah, I will leave them for another time. So I did review the common, uncommon cards yesterday and the day before. Today I did rares and bosses. I keep saying cards, I meant relics. And then tomorrow I'll be back with a daily. Yeah, so let me know in the comments what you thought. If you have any opinions, I do want to emphasize that you shouldn't compare the tiers between each other because obviously like an A tier boss relic is not going to be comparable to an A tier common relic. So I think you should make the comparison within each class. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you have any strong disagreement or agreement. Some of the relics I know I will get some backlash. Other relics I think I like them a lot and maybe others don't. So yeah, let me know in the comments. I'll be curious to read them. Well, I will read them while I'm on vacation. I won't be able to reply to them until I get back. So yeah, hopefully I'll be back tomorrow with a new daily, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye.